This time, from Poland with love, Medieval Dynasty brings us all the thrilling action of chopping trees, gathering mushrooms, and hunting the noble bison to the edge of extinction. It joins Farmers and Lumberjacks as one of the Dynasty series of games that publisher Toplitz is currently bringing into the world. This one is being developed by RenderCube, the same team behind Monster League, a kart racer that's been in early access since October of 2018. Medieval Dynasty hit the road in September of this year, and currently both games have majority positive ratings on Steam. It may be distressing to players of Medieval Dynasty that Render has had another game in early access for over 2 years now, but we'll discuss that later in the vid. For now, let's conjure up some George Sprave and find out what are its features. This game is really best summed up in one simple word: simulation. It really is as simple as that. We're somewhere in Eastern Europe, sometime between iron and steam, and somewhere between a hunter and a gatherer, and those will constitute the major loops here. Lots of trees to hack and whack, stones to hunt up, mushrooms you'll literally be tripping over, and enough wildlife to keep your petting zoo in business for at least a dynasty. It has a cycling quest system on top of a couple main storylines that both progress according to the seasons. And the rest of the time, simulationing. When you're not busy cramming in quests, you're free to build your own town, hire the best of the best to run it, and woo the future Mrs. Dynasty to get your family line well and truly established. And steel yourself for the conversations you're about to muddle your way through. I think you're supposed to be able to get an idea on the pros and cons of the person you're chatting with, what their skills might tend towards, but it's a bit like a conversation in any recent Fallout game. Yeah, that is, it's a little hit and miss with the choices, which are limited. Less Pelmanism, more surprise mechanic. There's little to indicate what you should or shouldn't try to say to any particular future villager, but there seems to be a better than average chance you'll run into someone with a blue spruce personality. Did I say blue spruce? If you want to get your steps in, it's standard WASD mouse and keyboard stuff, space jumps included, and I haven't hit any issues with it. Sprinting is done Terminator style, and it'd be nice if it could be set to a toggle scheme, but small potatoes. Currently, the roadmap for future developments has riding listed, but there's no real indication of what you'll be riding. The only animals in the game that may be rideable are deer, cows, and the humble Vicent. And don't get me wrong, riding a Vicent around would be some kind of expression of your worldviews, but I have to assume the update will include something less bovine and maybe more equine. Now, sometimes hunting can be a bit of an adventure, but I limit more on how the animals react than on my utter rubbish hunting instincts. Rabbits bounce around like cats chasing laser pointers. Foxes are one part immortal, one part rabid, and the deer can book off across the landscape like rockets that are magnetized to dirt. Weird thing, after playing far too much Long Dark, I was jumpy as all heck on running into my first wolf. But these guys, they're like puppy dogs, just a little more bitey. As far as world interactivity goes, this game has one of those things that, for some reason, I only half notice, often expect, and usually just accept as part of any game. That whole thing where you're trying to pick up what you're looking at, but can't until you look at something else. I don't know what this is, but it's weird to me that I'm so used to it happening that I immediately started moving my reticle around a neighborhood of stones and mushrooms to be able to pick them up, knowing full well that looking right at them wouldn't help me. Is that a statement about games, or me as a gamer? I wish I knew, but this game has that thing going on, and it's just as annoying now as it ever has been. The menu system takes a little getting used to. I'm constantly hitting the wrong hotkeys to navigate through it, and some of the management tabs might escape your notice as you try to work out the difference between navigating back and forth with Q and E versus A and D. But I'm a dummy, and that's what my mouse is for. Once you do notice the other tabs, you can find all the sliders a modern micromanager could ask for to direct whatever your shemps are up to. Some of the things the worker ants can do will be tied to the crafting system, and I'll hit that in a little bit, but this is where the bulk of any large-scale production is going to be controlled from. When you explore the Skills tab, you'll find a number of things that are labeled as work in progress. For some of the skill sections, that takes up most of the tree, so earning levels in those skill paths may or may not actually be useful. It's kind of tough to tell, honestly, but what else are you going to do with earned points? The skill lines that are fully integrated are pretty effective, and I like the fact that each individual tree is tied to the actions you choose to undertake. Finally! Not just flat experience gains. You want to get better at hunting? Go hunt! Project Entropia/Entropia Universe had the same kind of thing going on, and while it could get overwhelming at times, it makes a certain amount of good sense. Do that thing, get better at that thing. Do something else, get better at that. Boom! In my opinion, the building and crafting aspects are a little undercooked right now. Gaining skill in the different areas will open up access to crafting recipes that you can purchase to either craft yourself or assign to your villagers, but they can be a little pricey, especially in relation to how much you have to sell to afford them. That can translate to a lot of time running back and forth to sell off as much as you can craft as quickly as possible so you don't lose a season. It's worth noting that you can now choose how long your seasons last, and depending on how you want to play the game, you can opt for seasons of between 1 and 30 days. The default is 3 days, and that can often feel hectic as you race around trying to complete quests before they're auto-failed by the next season. Also, the crafting and building systems are pretty tightly entangled. Building a specific workshop will give you access to different tools, weapons, clothes, and things, but you may not be able to actually make them until you've reached a certain level in its associated skill tree. And you may not be able to really level up that skill tree until you can build the things at that associated workshop. And so on. It often feels like you're caught in a circle of, I need A to make B, but I can't get A without already having B. Which then leads to a couple days running around the map from village to village to see if anyone simply has what you need for sale. Building could also benefit from a couple of other changes. The terrain is the biggest obstacle I've run up against. A slight bump, and oh no, you ain't building there. If building foundations could mold to the ground more, or if there were a way to do some land shaping with the picks and shovels, I'd have less to say about town building, but it'd also be nice if there was a separate planning camera, as in you can switch to a bird's eye view like in No Man's Sky to maybe more accurately place things where you want them. And then, how about being able to assign builder as an occupation? Someone in your town that can take care of repairs or build structures on foundations that you place, while you're busy absolutely wrecking the local wooden home market. It'd be nice, and one can dream. Graphically, walking out of the forest at the start and seeing the valley just open up is a great way to enter this little world. Render Cube really nails it with this open. Immediately I had flashbacks to Kingdom Come. Similar look, similar feel, and if the menus used that Kingdom Come font instead of the Oblivion font, I would have sworn it was some kind of sister game. And while I think Kingdom Come is a graphically beautiful game, I'm gonna say I think that this one does some things maybe a little better. I used to live in a part of the world that had things like more than 2 kinds of weather and more than 1.5 seasons, and seeing autumn here, it's great. The atmosphere is awesome, and for me the lack of crazy bloom effects really makes it feel all crisp and realistic. The golden summer sunlight looks sweltery, scorching, and the trees. Unfortunately, the buildings are all a little underwhelming in contrast with the landscape. They're bare and uninteresting, but Render Cube has been adding furniture and such to liven things up a little bit. The character animations and pathing can be a little wonky on occasion. Sometimes NPCs will spawn in weird places or get lost trying to walk through a door. Remember, it is early access, so I mean, they still seem to get their work done, and that's all I'm really looking for out of them. The real thing that gets me with the graphics is this weird feeling that I'm trying to watch a 3D movie without the glasses. I don't know how to explain it, but it takes my eyes a while to adjust to this game for some reason, and I always feel as though I'm looking at it slightly sideways. The head bobbing, it also feels a little bit aggressive, but I get used to that fairly quickly in relation to that messed up eyes feeling. And then we have the adios, amigos. And for the most part, it's all good here. The environmentals are good and mixed with the graphics to flesh out the world. The sound effects are a little lackluster, but it is one of the areas that they've been working on. Crafting could still use a little help. It sounds like I'm making wooden spears with a roll of tape and a drawer full of random nuts and bolts. So hopefully it gets refined a little as the game approaches release. And the volume control on some of the animal sounds also seems to jump around the dial a bit. The soundtrack though, this is simply great. Composer and sound designer Queen of Noise freaking kills it here. It has me thinking of Heilung, Skald, or Shireen, a modern take on more traditional themes and instrumentations, and yet, the soundtrack that downloaded with the game has 18 tracks listed, but the game seems to cycle through only 4 or 5 of them. Also, it'll just cut out randomly every now and then right in the middle of a track, and it's a little jarring. At first, I thought it may have been triggered by some animal about to attack me, but no, it just cuts out. There's a link to her webpage down below, and I recommend checking it out, if only because the copyright date on the page is 2023. This is future music, baby! Alright, let's move back to RenderCube. Medieval Dynasty hit early access in September, and I picked it up a day or two after it hit the Steamy store. One thing I can say for the team is that they ain't sleeping. When it finished downloading, I booted it up, and within 30 minutes of playing, there's an update queued. Another one 2 hours later. And another later on that evening. 3 updates on one day? I mean, holy heck! And more updates filed in through the course of that first week. That's update with an S, within the first couple weeks of hitting early access. And it didn't stop then. They've been actively pushing out updates for the past 2 months, fixing bugs and adding content, adding systems, and perhaps slowly plugging away on those work-in-progress skill trees. And they've been running dev streams and Q&As on the regular as well, so these guys are definitely all in on that communication front. But who knows what that means in terms of road mapping. As stated earlier, they've had another title in early access for the past 2 years, so the spate of activity may eventually ebb off a bit as they move into fine-tuning things. I haven't been able to track down a roadmap that looks beyond the upcoming spring, but it does show a gradual growth in store. Riding, as stated earlier, as well as beekeeping, probably other quality of life stuff, and alcohol production, followed by bandits. And yeah, that sounds about right. And yeah, I dig this title. Sure, it's a little rough around the edges, but someone probably said that about Monopoly at some point. Now, one of them is a dystopian view of toxic capitalist economic policies, and the other is a major board game, so... wait, what? Is that? I don't really know what I was going for there. Yeah, I dig this title. I enjoy the environment. I said before that I'm a sucker for environments that feel alive. It's good to see how active RenderCube has been with the updates and their interactions with the player community. They really seem focused on it, and they're really in touch with what the players are giving them for feedback. And yeah, I'll be coming back to this game as it grows. I mean, what the heck is going to happen with bandits in the game? I don't know, but I want to. It could be simply hilarious if they have some of the same weird difficulties the other NPCs do. It could also add a new level of challenge that the game could really benefit from. And yeah, I will be back on release. I'm really looking forward to the future of this game, and I hope RenderCube can keep up the pace. They've definitely been moving quick, and their test server is constantly on the updates. Sure, it's got some jiggly bits, but to me, it's worth a look. For now, it's off to the races. And that goes for the next game I'll be looking at too. A game I like to classify in the Burning Max genre of the gamosphere. As always, thanks for coming by, click around down below, and stay safe out there. Cheers. here? Wait, what is that? Is that all right. What do we got here? Is it some kind of Witcher quest?